Okay guys, question 7. Now this is the first question for section C. So this is the big section and this is the section that requires me to respond from memory. So it's a little bit tricky and that's why we need to answer these questions first. So as soon as you start your writing time, this is where we're going to start. So question 7, 12 marks, I'm circling that. I'm going to give myself 13 minutes. Okay. Here we go. Use at least 2 analytical frameworks, so it's in bold, but I'm going to highlight it anyway, to comment on the meanings and messages specifically. So what does the artwork mean? On one artwork, pre-1970, and it has to be one that I've studied this year. So it has to be the artworks that you've studied in your SACs, because they're the ones that will give you the most success. So I'm going to go with the hurdle artwork, so I'm not favouring anyone. So I'm going to say MC Escher. The work I'm going to pick is convex and concave. And it was 1955, so pre-1970. Now the 2 frameworks I'm going to go with the formal, generally the easiest, and I'm going to go with the personal because I know quite a bit about Escher. Okay. Here we go. And concave is a colourless print that depicts a internal space. The use of allowed create position with extreme detail. The small trucks 35 by 7. These details from close, convex and concave, and I'm going to underline this is really important, is a colourless lithograph print that depicts a surreal internal space. The use of lithograph techniques has allowed Escher to create a composition with extreme detail, The small scale of the work, approximately 35 by 27 centimetres, draws the viewer into the print, allowing them to examine these details from close proximity. The subject matter consists of staircases, arches, and columns that are reminiscent of realistic structural forms. Closer inspection, it is clear that this is an, here's a commentary, impossible space lead nowhere has become ceilings. I'll see you, John.
Thanks very much. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
No one's to know. Right. Let me watch the back.
Letters become pathways. Coloured lithograph print that depicts a surreal internal space. The use of lithograph techniques has allowed Escher to create a composition with extreme detail. The small scale of the work, approximately 35 by 27, draws the viewer into the print, allowing them to examine these details from close proximity. The subject matter consists of staircases, arches, and columns that are reminiscent of realistic structural forms. Upon closer inspection, it is clear that this is an impossible space, as stairs and openings lead to nowhere, floors become ceilings, and ladders become pathways. The figures within the work emphasize this illusion as they realistic feeling space. Escher, let's get my timer here. Designer. Textural forms. Particularly this in architecture is evident in the convex and concave is a colourless lithograph print that depicts a surreal internal space. The use of lithograph techniques has allowed Escher to create a composition with extreme detail. The small scale of the work, approximately 35 by 27, draws the viewer into the print, allowing them to examine these details from close proximity. The subject matter consists of staircases, arches and columns that are reminiscent of realistic structural forms. Upon closer inspection, it is clear that this is an impossible space, as stairs and openings lead nowhere, floors become ceilings, and ladders become pathways. The figures within the work emphasise this illusion as they give the work a realistic feeling of scale and space. Escher was an artist and designer with an interest in architectural forms, particularly those he was exposed to in his travels around Europe. This interest in architecture is evident in the artwork and, in the repeated use of buildings. Has created a visual puzzle that engage with work and consider challenges posed. Okay, I've got 30 seconds. Oh, whoops. Let's have a look. 2 analytical frameworks. I've talked about the formal, I've talked about the techniques, I talked about elements and principles, and I talked about the composition. I also had references to style, some symbols in the work. Personal, I talked about the artist's life and experiences, several references to the viewer, so I'm happy with that. Lots of references to the artwork. I've talked about the meanings and messages in the references to architecture, and I've talked about one artwork. Easy, done.